Hello, everybody, and welcome to the MedEvac Podcast. I'm your host, Christian Meyers, joined by our other host, David Reid.
Hello, everybody.
Before we hop into today's episode, please keep in mind there's a price for the show. You have to share it or interact with it in some fashion. So hit that button, share it with some people, and let us know what you think about it.
Ask questions. We have an amazing guest today, our very first Vietnam veteran.
Yeah, please welcome Jesse Herrera to the show.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you for being here, Jesse.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, man.
So Jesse was a Marine combat veteran in Vietnam from 65 to 69. He's been combat injured twice, actually returned to Vietnam after an injury, and we're going to dive into that a little bit today.
All right.
Oh, man. First and foremost, I got to preface this show by saying how amazing it is to have a Vietnam vet. Those who have just set the precedence of how our modern day military is treated because of the horrendous conditions they had when they came back home.
And fought in.
And two, it's very, very difficult for our Vietnam veterans to talk about their past experiences because they were accepted that way. You know, they were treated so poorly, so naturally they don't want to talk about it.
Right.
So welcome and thank you so much for coming onto this show and just sharing. I know it's difficult at times, but it sounds to me like you're pumped and ready to share this message with everybody.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here. And you're right. I don't know many Vietnam veterans, even 50 years later, that talk much about the war. There's really not much to talk about, you know. And I see and I feel that I'm one of them, much more comfortable discussing war-related topics and stories with other combat vets. Even Vietnam vets who didn't see combat, hard to talk to them also. Yeah. They just don't know. Combat veterans are brothers. It's like a brotherhood, strong bond there that we don't have with veterans who've never seen combat. And that's not anything negative about vets who didn't. That's just the way combat vets go about their business. It's they can relate to others, but not all veterans. So, I don't mind. I'm at a point in my life where I can finally open up about talking about the war experience. And without getting too specific or going into details, man, we keep it kind of general.
Well, today I might have to challenge you to get a little bit more detailed if you can.
All right.
But if it's too much, like I said, tell me to shut up.
Okay.
So let's go to the beginning, 1965. Okay. How did you perceive the military at that time, and how did you find yourself enlisting?
I grew up watching John Wayne and playing war in the backyard and stuff, and seeing all the patriotic World War II movies and films. I looked at the military as I looked up to them. Yeah, I respected them, and really, I as far as enlisting, I was out of high school. I was at loose ends. I wasn't going to continue my education. Had a dead-end job. I didn't have a plan for my life. I didn't have a trade. I was really just kind of floating along. And I saw these posters and advertisements for the Navy, and join the Navy and see the world and exotic ports and all this stuff, man. And it really sounded good to a 19-year-old. Plus it would get me out of Texas. And I'd been as far as Louisiana, and that was it. And so I at the time, Vietnam hadn't started or hadn't kicked up heavy. I was in boot camp. I just enlisted to learn a trade, possibly further my education down the road. Mm-hmm. But really, I just wanted some excitement, and I thought the military would provide it. And I enlisted 4-year term. I was in boot camp. I enlisted in February of 1965, and I was in boot camp when LBJ committed and sent the Marines to Vietnam. Mm. So, that was March, I forget.
But that was a surprise to you then. So here it was a peacetime environment.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden in boot camp, you're getting told you're going to Vietnam?
Everybody knew they were going there.
Wow.
And
what was the general feeling that everybody had?
Well, people join the Marine Corps because they're tough.
Yeah.
They think they are, and they want to get out there and play war, and
so everybody was motivated.
Yeah, and the Marine Corps eats it up. They train you in all forms of killing, and that they don't step around it, and it is about killing the enemy before they kill you, mm-hmm. and give the enemy an opportunity to die for their country, and you stay living, and
fucking Christ.
So Marine Corps
to give the enemy an opportunity to die for their country.
For their country, that's correct.
Wow, that is gracious of the Marine Corps.
I always thought so. Marine Corps. I was saying, little war is better than no war at all. They train the mind.
Yeah,
to that mindset.
Absolutely do
that
to be a killer.
Yeah, you're either going to kill people or they're going to kill you, and all the training was geared to that.
How did you feel? Invincible?
Well, I didn't feel that way when I joined, but I when I came out, I was feeling that way. I thought the Marine Corps told me that there wasn't a motherfucker walking on this planet that was better than a U.S. Marine, and I believed it, and I lived it, and I've never looked back from that. As far as fighting forces, I think the Marine Corps is the finest fighting force in the world, and all Marines believe that.
Yeah,
and it's really hard to beat us, mm-hmm. and it's I see the technology, the advancements over the last 50 years, and how to kill people in all sorts of creative ways these days, and I think back, and we would have loved to have had some of the toys that the military has today.
Some of the toys are pretty nice.
They are, and they make your job a lot easier. It makes it easier to kill people, that's for sure. So let's talk 1965. Boot camp is going on at the height. You're going to war. You're getting that general consensus of invincibility and Marine Corps spirit to go crush the enemy and give them a chance to die for their country, which is incredible. How fast did you find yourself in Vietnam?
It took me a while. I went. I stayed there next. At the time, Marine boot camp was 16 weeks, and I stayed an extra 2 weeks and worked the targets on the shooting range. putting them up, pulling them down. And did that for 2 weeks. Came out a 30-day leave and went to Camp Pendleton. And at the time, the 5th Marine Division had been deactivated after, I'm not really sure if it was World War II or Korea, but it wasn't an active Marine Division. And they were in the process of reforming it up and getting more bodies for Vietnam. So I was sent to Pendleton as part of that rebuilding the 5th and spent months at Camp Pendleton training in all phases of I guess you'd call it war. It was like it
was a crash course to get ready for the environment that you're about to get in.
Yeah, not so much the environment, but the tactics.
Tactics.
And how to go, how to best go about it. We trained on assault boats, climbing up and down and off the side of a ship on these road nets. It just got the feel of riding in helicopters quite often. Marine Corps runs everywhere. A lot of running, a lot of training, a lot of 3-mile run before breakfast, that kind of stuff. And so they toughened you up.
Did you ever find yourself running 3 miles in Vietnam?
All the time. My mind's saying, man, we don't got to run there. And it's just like, yeah, you do.
Yeah, you do.
But so it took me about 15 months after I enlisted to, no, it's more like a year and a half.
Okay.
Before I got to Vietnam, I landed. We went over 2 battalions of the 5th. The first 2 battalions of the 5th Marine Division since World War II, 126 and 226, the 26th Marine Regiment, 2 battalions. And we went over, it was like, I went with 226. It was a 17-ship convoy. And we took everything with us, even the kitchen sink. Man, it was artillery, the medical, the transportation, the infantry units, tanks, everything. Everything that was belonged to the battalion went with us. And we got to, I landed in Vietnam in July of 66.
Okay.
So it was like about a year and a half.
So where did you land?
I landed in Da Nang. They immediately, they detached me from 226, the guys I'd been training with and everything, and sent me to the transit barracks there in Da Nang for the Marine Transit Barracks, and spent 3 days there and received orders that sent me to the 1st Battalion, 3rd Marines. And and I caught the tail end of Operation Hastings in July of 66. And been in country maybe 10, 11 days before I saw combat.
So before you get into the combat,
yes,
I just want to kind of go over the feelings that you were experiencing. Landing on the beach to a very, very foreign country, knowing what you're about to get into. What was that energy like?
I was scared.
Yeah?
Yeah. And not to the point to where it was paralyzing fear, but it was fear, I guess, more of the unknown than anything. I didn't know what was going to happen, where I was going to go, what
Fear, confusion.
Oh, yeah.
People yelling at you.
Yeah, all the time. And the thought, I remember that one thought going through my mind was that we were on the deck of the ship the night before we landed, and we went ashore in the morning. But the night before, you'd see the tracer rounds, and you'd see the explosions and stuff. And the thought went through my mind, I sure would hate to die in this place, But other than that, there wasn't an overwhelming fear of anything. It was just
fear of the unknown.
Anxious to get to a unit and to get it going.
Yeah.
That fear can keep you alive, though, right?
Yeah.
Healthy fear of
yes.
what's going to happen. That'll help save your life at some points.
The longer I was there, over time, you develop a sense. It's like the hairs on the back of your neck.
Oh, yeah.
Would stand up, or like static electricity.
Mm-hmm.
And you just knew they were there, or something's coming. Everything went high alert mentally and physically. And that was developed over time. But
those instincts are few and far between nowadays.
Yeah.
Humans don't really experience that anymore. So 10, 11 days.
Yeah.
Then you get your first combat experience.
Mm-hmm.
And walk us through the beginning of that. Like, where did you find yourself? Was it on patrol? What was the mission objective? Like, what was the spin up for that?
I joined Alpha Company, 2nd Platoon, towards the tail end of an operation. They had captured just a ton of weapons and supplies of all kinds. And it was like, wasn't a mopping up type of operation. It was more like the enemy was on the run and retreating, and we were like chasing them.
So, what was your consensus of the enemy at this time? What was your perception of them?
It was turned on its end. Before I got there, my image of the enemy was these guys in black pajamas and these bamboo cone heads, and when we were operating in I-Corps, which is a northern area of Vietnam, and up there were no guys in black pajamas. It was well-trained, well-equipped North Vietnamese regular Army troops.
Mm-hmm.
Packs, boots.
Relentless.
Yes, yeah. Very hard fight.
And conditioned almost very similarly to the Marine Corps.
Yeah. They were hard fighters. The thing that impressed me about them, and it sticks in my mind to this day, is how fast they moved, man. They were on you before you even knew it. It was like they moved real quick. I think they weren't carrying all the gear that we were.
Also, home field advantage. And
they just their speed just overwhelmed you. They were on you before you could get set, and that was. But my image, my concept of the idea changed radically from somebody who would be easily disposed of to somebody that's not going to lay down for us and fight you tooth and nail. And I will say that I had to respect that. I mean, if I didn't, I could very easily get complacent and lose my life. I had to always be aware that I'm fighting a well-trained, well-disciplined, well-equipped Army, and who has modern tactics, just like we do. And it was an eye-opening experience. My image, my idea of the enemy, it just was turned over on its end. We were in for a fight, and I hadn't looked at it that way before that first contact.
Yeah, but, that's incredible.
When you did stop and recognize the enemy for what they were, did that adjust your feeling about being there? Did that change your perception of?
Well, it didn't matter what I felt.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't going anywhere, and we just did what we were trained to do, and more importantly, what we were told to do.
Sure.
And Marine Corps has their tactics down pat, and we just need to stay alive long enough to follow them.
Mm-hmm.
And that was basically it. It was just staying alive one more day, but it never got to the point and I will say this, I was scared a lot of the time, but it was never a paralyzing fear. It was like I needed to have that fear to make me more alert, more aware, more
less complacent.
Yeah,
less complacent.
Yeah, you use the fear to your advantage.
Yeah, and the thing about that is there was that anxious feeling and that little bit of fear mixed in with it before any contact. But once the initial contact was made, all of that disappeared, and you pretty much ran on automatic. And what the NCOs were yelling at you, man, move up on the left. Do this, do that, take that. It's just pretty much rote. We were trained for this. Let's do it. And but that fear and anxiety and all of that pretty much goes away with that initial blast of enemy fire, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it doesn't. And let's get this done. Let's get them out of the way. Let's. So it's a motivator.
Absolutely.
Get him before he gets you.
So 11 days.
More or less.
Which is a quick turnaround.
Yeah. My memory's kind of hazy on...
You know what? We're not going to hold that against you. We'll say, I'm going to stick to that. 11 days is pretty good.
Okay.
That's pretty quick. So we think we're chasing the enemy after finding a cache of weapons and other equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, man, that must have been pretty powerful too. Is you're like, we have the enemy on the run. Oh, right. No, we don't.
No, we don't.
Oh, no, we don't. Yeah. So let's...
Yeah, well, before I go on to that, man, one of the things that we captured were medical supplies, and there were like pallets, lots of medical supplies, and they were all labeled and stamped with the National Liberation Front out of Berkeley, California. So I've always, I will never forgive or forget the anti-war people here in the States giving aid and comfort to the enemy. That was an eye opener. But yeah.
So you're saying that there was people in your own country that were supporting the enemy. There was essentially driving them to take more American lives.
That was the impression I got.
Yeah.
From what I saw.
That's horrendous.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that feeling when you put two and two together and you realize that other Americans are supporting the people that you're currently fighting. I can't imagine what that feels like.
You felt betrayed. You felt betrayed when you saw that.
Oh, yeah. Well, it reinforced a belief
Yeah.
that I had about the anti-war movement, and they that was part and parcel of their activities. Was supplying moral support as well as material support.
That would never, ever fly nowadays.
I would hope not. Yeah,
I would hope not too.
Yeah,
I would hope not.
And I don't know what became of that or what the consequences were for the National Liberation Front, but from what I learned is that not much. You know, that movement pretty much took over the opinion of the everyday person, and more people joined that thinking of anti-war, and it just built momentum, and they were on a roll, and I think that's what fed some of the animosity towards the troops when we returned. You know,
Yeah.
I think that was a big part of it.
Yeah.
The anti-war people.
So you see that medical supplies, you're kind of shaken by it. What's next?
We the operation in. The enemy's on the run. We can't find them anymore. They disappeared. We go back to Da Nang, and we're just north of Da Nang at Hai Van Pass. It's a location there, and July, August, September. Within 2 months, they load us on big 6x trucks, and we drive down to the Air Force Base at Da Nang, and we get on board C-136s, and it's stripped down 136. There's nothing inside it. No benches, no seats, no nothing. And we're carrying all your 782 gear, all your combat gear, weapons, everything. And they drop the ramp, and you walk in there, and you squat. And the guy behind, we just fill up the plane, 3 or 4 lines of Marine squatting. Your knees are touching the pack of the guy in front of you, and the guy's knees behind you, just packed like sardines. And we take off and flew up north. We were on, you never know, they never tell you where you're going or what's ahead, or it's a surprise when you get there.
You feel like a body. You just got to feel like a body. A sardine, literally.
So we found out we were on Operation Prairie, and that was up until then, I think that was the bloodiest fighting that the Marine Corps had seen there, man. That was the battle for the rock pile and surrounding areas. Had a real good friend that his name was Ronnie St. John, out of somewhere in Maine. And with it, 3 days of landing and trying to take the rock pile, he was dead. And that really hit me hard because, first of all, he was a good friend, and second, I'd seen death, but never someone close to me.
Sure.
And it kind of shook me up. But this was another part of the education that I received there. I could not afford to take the time to grieve, cry, or reminisce about Ronnie, because if you start doing that, you'll be the next casualty. You had to focus on what was going on around you, and if you come back to missing him, that would all come later. I learned. I never knew it till years after I was back, but I learned how to detach
and compartmentalize.
And it was I got so good at it that it is extremely difficult to feel once I made it back here.
So did that make it difficult for you to connect to other Marines?
Yes, it did. But doesn't matter what or how difficult it is. You find yourself in situations where you cannot help but draw closer to these your buddies.
Yeah.
And they're, you're tight. You depend on one another. And it's easy enough just say, don't get close to somebody, but reality doesn't work that way. We're close to all of them, to each other.
That's got to be, something pretty hard to deal with initially. And you're only there for 2 months at this point, right?
Yeah.
Or before you lost Ronnie. Yeah. I mean, having that be your very first experiences there has got to be pretty difficult to navigate through. But like you said, you don't have time to stop. And
I never dealt with it.
Yeah.
You put it aside. You detach from that.
Yeah.
There was a saying over there. It don't mean nothing. Everybody said that. It don't mean nothing. You're standing next to me and you get blown away. It don't mean nothing. And it could have been your best friend and it don't mean nothing. It means something further down the road, but at the time,
it's so often.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You just lost buddies left and right, and you had to get used to that. Was day to day.
Yeah. That made it extremely difficult when I got back to feel. It's just, there was, after you've experienced sheer absolute terror, nothing back here is gonna get you excited. It was hard to feel, hard to express emotion.
Yes.
Never talked about feelings. Never talked about the experience.
And if you did, you needed to suck it up and rub some dirt on it.
That's it. That's it. Yeah. So that pretty much sums it up. That was I was hit on
same mission. Was this the same mission? Same operation?
No. This was a couple of months later. I was shot. There was an operation. Well, it wasn't an operation. It was like we moved from Prairie, boarded the planes, and they flew us to Quezon, and from Quezon we moved out and occupied the surrounding hills that overlooked the airstrip. 881 South, 881 North, and 861 were the hills. And that was called the Hill Fights. And dug in, determined enemy. Took 6 days to take those 3 hills, and 1,600 Marine Corps casualties in 6 days. There's some brutal fighting. And I stated I was flown. I was medevac to Dong Ha. It was Charlie Med, big field hospital, and it was like that old program, MASH. I mean, there wasn't a wooden structure in the place. I'm coming in on a medevac chopper, and I could see us, below, and there was green canvas tents everywhere, man. And it was a monsoon season, and everything is mud, and they were using wooden pallets as sidewalks to connect the tents.
Yeah.
And I remember the chopper hitting the LZ, and corpsman running up and grabbing the canvas stretcher I was on, and they take off running. And I could hear them. I could hear their boots hitting the wooden pallets. And they ran and ducked and finally ducked into a tent and took the stretcher with me on it, just canvas and wooden handle. And they set that between two sawhorses, and they went to work on me right there.
Where were you shot?
That was a Charlie Med at Dong Ha.
Where on your body were you shot?
Oh, I was hitting the right thigh, and it was a blessing that it was through and through. It didn't hit the bone.
Wow!
If it had hit the bone, it'd have got me a stateside wound. I'd have been useless. But I was hit with the tracer round.
I'm sorry. You said that's lucky.
Yeah.
That you didn't get sent home.
Well,
I take a moment and remind the audience that he said he got lucky because he wanted to be with his boys.
Yeah. I didn't want to leave my buddies, but I was hit with the tracer round, and what that did,
God.
what that did was it was through and through, and it cauterized everything on the way through to where I didn't bleed very much, which was a blessing, And so I spent the night there at Charlie Med. They debrided the wound, cleaned it up, patched it up. Next morning, another C-136. This one just stacked about 6 high with these canvas stretchers.
Mm-hmm.
And it was full of casualties, all kinds of people missing heart. Well, I mean, people seriously wounded, man. And they flew us down to Da Nang, and they didn't send me to the hospital there. An ambulance took me over to an LZ. They loaded me on a chopper and flew out to the USS Repose. It was a hospital ship, a Navy hospital ship that cruised up and down the coast of Vietnam and took on casualties.
Okay.
And at the time, state-of-the-art ORs, operating room, no sawhorses, none of this stuff. Plus, they had round-eyed American women, nurses. And so I that's where I recuperated. I was there 5 weeks, and after 5 weeks, they sailed into the Subic Bay in the Philippines to resupply the ship. And I was there 3 days, and they flew me back to Da Nang. And so 3rd Marine Division headquarters was based in Da Nang when I got in country. And when I returned, they had been moved up to Phu further north, and the 1st Marine Division had moved up from Chulai to Da Nang.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at the time, Army units might have been taking some of that responsibility further south, but we had it all the way to the DMZ. So I get to Phu. I wanted to get back to my buddies, my unit, and found out that I did not have a unit. there was a 1-3 on paper, but physically, in reality, they'd been decimated. It pretty much been wiped out. And the battalion itself was on Okinawa, picking up replacements and training them at that northern training area there in Okinawa. So I didn't have a unit. And I went to 3rd Recon Battalion. And Marine Recon is kind of like the special ops part of the Marine Corps.
Yes.
And it was man, so different. and I it's strange to say, but that excitement, the adrenaline rushing through you, all of that was, I kind of liked it, and that's I don't know what that says about me, but I fit right into recon. And,
it says that you're a Marine. And 2, tell us how that experience changed for you from going from regular Marines to recon Marines.
Well, with the grunts or regular Marines, it was like you always had this support, and you could march through the boonies and make noise, flatten trees, talk loud, and it wouldn't, if you ran, if the enemy hit you, then that's what they were looking for and hoping for, because they call in all this superior firepower, artillery, fighter jets, air support, and just really do a job on the enemy. In recon, you work with 5-man teams. You got all painted up, war paint we call it, and you didn't wear helmets, flak jackets, or any of that. It was a bush hat and no armor, and you were inserted and extracted. You were inserted deep in Indian country, no friendly units around of any kind, and just the 5 of you guys, and you had a mission. You were briefed on it, and you went ahead and did it, and whatever it took, 5-6 days, you called for an extraction, and they'd come pick you up.
Well, can you walk us through a memorable operation?
Well, I only went on Prairie and Hastings, and it was a tail end of Hastings. I caught all of Prairie. There was a presidential unit citation for Prairie. It's just brutal fighting. But so those are only 2 operations. Recon didn't have big offenses like that. They were our biggest weapon in recon was stealth, and there's 5 of you got, and if they find you, if they know you're out there, they're going to come after you. And
strictly sabotage type operations, right? Where you go in, dismantle enemy equipment.
Well, I can't say a whole lot about it, but no, we didn't. That was World War II stuff. We were into reconnaissance, tracking down enemy units, gauging their strength, noting their coordinates.
Yeah,
and so artillery or air power could be called in, but it moved into really dark areas. At the time, CIA would recruit from the ranks of recon, and if you were chosen, we never saw you again. But they were into really scary stuff.
Yeah.
And
SOG MACV.
Yeah. And there was a program, the Phoenix program. You'll never see it anywhere. Nobody talked about it. The officers, it wasn't a paper trail. The Phoenix Project was that run assassination teams. And nobody wanted to admit to that,
Sure.
If this came up, I'd say I just made this up, because
ain't no one going to come after you at this point in time. It's declassified at this point. So,
but yeah, so with recon, it was all about stealth.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't talk out there; it was all hand signals. And it was real funny when you going in an insertion. You got all your gear. We had a mound of dirt. You get up there and you jump around, and anything rattled or made noise, yeah. So when we were ready, we'd head for the choppers and get on board. Our taxis were Chinooks, CH-46s, and that dropped that ramp, those little choppers with the porthole windows. Mm-hmm. And they dropped the ramp. We'd walk in there, and there's like a bench on either side. And there's just 5 of us. And so we sit down, and chopper revs up, and we take off. And on the way to an insertion, it was never planned or talked about, but it just worked out that way, where nobody said anything, man. Everybody's quiet with their own thoughts and thinking whatever you're thinking, and nothing spoken, no banter, no kidding around, no nothing. Nobody spoke. And when our mission was over and we were getting extracted, the chopper would come in and a ramp would drop, and we'd run into that. As soon as the chopper was in the air, everybody start talking at the same time and wouldn't shut up, man. It would just be relief. That stress just gone from not talking to couldn't talk enough, man. And I never really noticed it until after it was all done, and I thought, man, that's weird.
Yeah. That's so. I'm very curious to, you get inserted in and you're walking through the jungle. How terrifying is each step? Every branch breaking, every leaf slapping against you. How terrifying is that? Knowing the enemy is surrounding you 360 degrees.
Wasn't terrifying at all. We used stealth.
Yeah.
There wasn't branches snapping against us, and we moved slow. But we were painted up. We looked like a bush.
Mm-hmm.
And if you could be close by to the enemy, and if you weren't moving, chances are they wouldn't see you.
How close did you get?
But from me to you.
That's
and I tell you something. I grew up. My dad was a big outdoorsman.
Mm-hmm.
Loved to hunt and loved to fish, and we grew up hunting and fishing. Me and my little brother, and I came back from Vietnam, and he had gotten an old World War II Italian Mauser, and he'd had all the wood redone. all the steel re-blued and everything, and he had a scope mounted on it, and he took his. I took that Mauser, and we went out to the range and sighted it in. But when I got back from the war, I never hunted again, man. You know, it was just it. Once you've hunted people, shooting defenseless animals is no sport, man.
I'm
you know, and that brings me up to I didn't know. I'll tell you a little story, man, because it doesn't involve any violence or anything, man. It's not gruesome, but we had a mission, and the team leader was a guy named Sergeant Baker. And he gets us out there and he gets us together and he said, look, this is my last patrol in Vietnam. He said, I'm not going to be KIA my last patrol here. He says, what we're going to do after we're inserted, he says, we're going to hunt for about a day, get far from the LZ. He said, we're going to find us a hide. And he said, we're going to lay up for the next 4 or 5 days. And I don't want no contact of any kind. So that's what we did, man. And we set up in a diamond formation. It was a 5-man team. He was in the center, and it just, the only thing difficult for me was staying awake. The heat stuff, you tend to nod out. But I was a big deer hunter, and I haven't hunted deer since we got back for one big reason, man. And I have a special place in my heart for axis deer. I never knew what an axis was. I was used to whitetail. But an axis has these spots like fawns, but they're adult deer. And so anyway, I'm sitting there in my hide, listening and looking. I see the, branches and bushes moving, and move some more. And I really got hunched down behind my ruck and got my weapon all aimed in that direction. And a deer stepped out of that, brush. And it was an adult, but he had these spots like fawns, and I'd never seen that. I knew it wasn't a fawn. He's too damn big, but I didn't know what kind of deer it was, man. I didn't know that till years later up in the hill country. They told me that's an axis. But he came out of that, brush area and start munching and wandering around, and he looked right at me, couldn't see me, and I guess he didn't smell me either, but he just kept munching away, man, and move a little here, move a little there, and I'm just watching him and not moving, and all of a sudden his ears come up and his head came up, and he took off. He bounded away, man. And I thought, somebody out here, and that he sensed, smelled, or heard or something. Mm-hmm. And so I got all ready. I hunkered down, man, put something in front of me and hunkered down. And sure enough, bush moved again, and there was a NVA soldier moved out of the brush, looked around, went up that way, came back, went down that way, came back, and we're back in the bush. And he comes out, him and two other MBA. And one goes that way, one goes this way, and he starts walking towards I am. And they, I thought, man, he ain't gonna walk. He ain't gonna get close to me, man. He kept walking and wouldn't stop. And I'm thinking, man, if I blow him away, I'm gonna expose our position to the enemy. Not necessarily our positions, but they're gonna know we're here.
Yeah.
And we compromise the mission. But really, we weren't on a mission. We were just hiding out. So he got pretty close. Not as close as me and you. That was another thing. But he got about from here to the door. And I thought, if he keeps walking, he's bound to see me. He's going to see me sooner or later. He's going to see me, man. So I opened up. And as soon as I fired, the rest of the team opened up, and it turned out, man, it just the enemy just fluttered out of that shrub. So we had a fight on our hands. We call it a mad minute. It's like everybody's rocking and rolling, full automatic, man, and within a minute, everybody's dead or running, and you're back to where you were. But I always thought to myself, I owe that Axis deer, my life for alerting me to the enemy. So I've never hunted deer since, and special place in my heart for the Axis deer, man.
Wow, that. Yeah, absolutely.
That's your spirit animal, man.
Yeah, it is. I never looked at it like that. You're right.
Yeah.
That is, man. That is
right.
Your Patronus for your Harry Potter fans.
Nerd.
I mean, that's incredible. Yeah. That's incredible. And that was your last operation?
No, that was
his last.
That was Sergeant Baker's last patrol or last mission in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And as soon as we completed the mission and got back to Khe Sanh, he was flying out to Da Nang and then out of the country. So he was gone.
That is incredible. And how much longer were you?
I'd been in country maybe 10, 11 months at that time.
But how much more did you have remaining?
The Marines do 13 months.
Okay.
Everybody did a year in Vietnam. Everybody. Air Force, Navy, Army. But Marine Corps being Marine Corps, we did 13 months. We had 1 month on those.
Had to do it. Had to do it. I mean, that is insanity. So, you still had some time in country.
You're right. Left. Yeah. So I kept going out.
And how was the experience for the last stint of your time?
I patrolled. I came off my last mission. I think I had something like 6 days left in country. They flew me down to Da Nang. I spent 3 days there, and I was gone. So it was.
And how were you received when you came back?
Yeah, it was funny. We spent 3 days in Okinawa, and they cleaned us up. We showered. Took away all that stuff and tried to wash all the dirt and everything else off of us, and gave us brand new uniforms. Gave us all the correct ribbons that we were due, and they made us presentable. Got all our shots and everything. And then flew us from Okinawa. It was a commercial jet with stewardesses. Flew us, and we flew into Marine Corps Air Station at El Toro Marine Corps Air Station in Anaheim, California.
Okay.
And we landed there. It must have been about 2, 3 in the morning. And base is asleep. And we got on buses. They took us to the mess hall. and they had steak and eggs for everybody, and steak to order. And man, we'd been eating twice a day, and there were C rations.
Mm-hmm.
And man, that was just anything you wanted to drink they had, but no alcohol. And so we got showered up, we got cleaned up, we ate real good meal, and we boarded buses, and everybody was headed out to Los Angeles International. And from there we scatter. Everybody headed all over the country.
Mm.
And I remember being on getting on that bus, and you really couldn't see out of the bus. It was like a prison bus, man. I'm thinking, at the time I didn't know what a prison bus was, but it was like maybe slits, less than an inch, and about 7-8 inches apart. You couldn't see a whole lot. And we got to the front gate, and the guards there, they checked to do whatever. So we're headed to the airport. And as soon as we pulled out at the gate and left government property and got onto civilian property,
Mm-hmm.
there's this group of people out there at that time of the night, all these signs and stuff, and we really couldn't see outside. And I thought it was a welcome home thing, right? So I'm trying to see, and what it was a group of anti-war people. And I had all kinds of signs, and they're yelling obscenities at us, and they start throwing stuff, and I found out that's why the windows were set up that way.
Yeah.
Everything from vegetables to rotten eggs to paper sacks full of shit, bottles of piss. Just, man, peppered the bus with all that shit. And man, I remember running up to the bus driver, man, yelling for him to stop the bus. And he says, "For what?" And I said, "I'm going to kill one of these motherfuckers." And he said, "Can't do it." He said, "I got my orders." He said, "My orders don't stop for nobody, for nothing."
How old are you at this time?
Huh?
How old are you?
I spent my 21st and 22nd birthday over there. So I was 22. And that was my welcome home.
Here you think you were serving your country valiantly and losing your buddies left and right. And you get home and this is how you're treated.
Yeah.
You must have been heartbroken.
Oh, I was pissed.
Yeah.
It was just some anger, like a rage.
Yeah.
And
what are you going to do with that after all this time they've taught you how to use that anger is to kill? And that's how you're feeling.
Yeah. And that carried over to when I got home. I didn't run it. I didn't have that experience in San Antonio. My mom and dad and my girlfriend met me at the airport, and I went home. But that carried over, that anger, that rage. I was telling Dan, my first 8, 9, 10 months home after the war, I must have got into 75 fights or so, man. I was just
full of rage.
Yeah. And
with no outlet.
Yeah.
No.
And no one to talk to.
Yeah. Yeah. So I didn't know. I was starting to think, man, what the fuck's wrong with me, man?
Yeah. When you have the whole world telling you that you're wrong,
yeah,
and you're just out of place now.
Yeah. So I didn't fit in.
Yeah.
Anymore, Dave, and that blew me away, man. I my girlfriend, we were out at Woodlawn Lake, I was on a Sunday, and she introduced me. She said, "Come on, Jesse, come on, I want to introduce you to a friend."
Mm-hmm.
So she drags me over to this guy, biker-looking dude, and with the beard, and He might have had a tattoo or two, but he was wearing colors of some sort. And she runs up to him and says, "Hey, so-and-so, I want you to meet my boyfriend. He's a Marine." Man, the guy looked at me from my feet up to the top of my head. And he says, "Oh, you one of them badasses." Man, I throat chopped him as soon as he said that, man. And man, he went down and I started in on him. My girlfriend just stopped. She was trying to pull me off of him, man. And stop, you're going to kill him. And anyway, man, we left. But that's give me an outlet for that rage. And man, I'm on you, man. And it was just, it was like that for months, man. A year or so, man. Just no outlet. I kept seeing headlines and TV news stories about some crazy Vietnam vet killing people and blowing people away and stuff. And I never got to that point to where I wanted to pick up a rifle and just shoot people.
Yeah.
But man, I sure felt like beating the shit out of him, man. And that's what I did.
Mm-hmm.
It was strange. I just...
We're overwhelmed by that hatred and that feeling of being displaced.
Yeah. I almost didn't get married. My girlfriend said, "Fuck's wrong with you, man?"
Yeah.
It's like, and I didn't have an answer,
Yeah. And then when enough people start saying that, you start believing it, right?
Yeah,
and then you start doubting yourself.
Yeah. Well, I never started thinking, well, I did, but it took a while. That anger faded a bit. And I started thinking, man, there's something wrong with me, man,
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't tell you what it was, and there was, there were doubts and stuff. I chose to handle it by doing drugs.
Mm-hmm.
I was an addict for about 4.5 decades. Went through all those dark places, in and out of penitentiary, the whole bit. And it's been April 12th was 17 years I've been clean and sober, man.
Congratulations, dude.
But it took me forever. It took me forever. Because the drugs anesthetized and numbed me out.
Yep.
To where there were no nightmares. There were no flashbacks. There was nothing, man.
Yeah.
It worked magic. And I was able to go through all those years without a breakdown of any kind.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until 85 I heard about the vet centers and checked one of them out. And I didn't, as first time I'd heard PTSD, I didn't even know what that was.
Yeah.
But there was no help available. Back then, the only people helping Vietnam vets were other Vietnam vets.
Yeah.
It was us against everybody.
Mm-hmm.
The government didn't help at all.
Yeah.
And it just, I started seeing suicides. I personally had 6 friends. Not that I met her in the military, but knew out here that were Vietnam veterans that committed suicide. 6 of them. I was telling Dan, it was so sad that so many got to that point where they considered suicide the only solution.
Mm-hmm.
But there was no other way, man. You couldn't. There was no help.
And I can totally get that isolation that everybody feels.
Yeah.
And, the whole point of the military is to break down your sense of purpose and create an entity that kills people. And they don't teach you how to turn that off.
Yep.
And now you're alone. Now, what are the other options? To stay in a world where everybody hates you?
That was, pretty much it.
Yeah.
The drugs took all of that away.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to deal with any of it. And I think that was the biggest arguments 35 years after the fact when I filed a claim for PTSD. It had been about 40 years. And they didn't want to give it to me. It's like he doesn't have PTSD. He's an addict. He's got a drug problem, and that's what it is. And the flip coin of that, I had people advocating, yeah, he's a drug addict. That's the only reason he's been able to survive for this long.
Yep.
To avoid the feeling, everything else that comes with it. And eventually I did get PTSD disability rating, but it was a fight. It was a struggle. That whole Vietnam experience, if I had to do it over, I wouldn't. But I'm really glad that I did. I'm glad I was there. I did what my country asked me to do. I did my duty. I'm very proud of my service. I don't apologize for anything I did in Vietnam, but I'd have to be crazy to want to go through that again, man.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah. But I love my country, and I think once you fought for this freedom that we have, man, you don't take it lightly. It's not free.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a price that has been paid. And, I think we're losing sight of that, man,
Yeah.
But, that whole experience, I'm glad I did it, but I wouldn't do it again. I've heard veterans say, yeah, man, I'd go back. I don't know. They must not seen what I saw, now, if it meant if they were attacking our country, yeah, in a minute, just in a flash, I'd be there. But not to go halfway around the world, Afghanistan, Iraq, Vietnam, and not. I have no idea what the combat situations were in Iraq and Afghanistan, but I've yet to hear of a really uplifting, positive combat experience, man.
Yeah.
It just don't work that way.
Yeah.
Different time, different generation. 1,600 Marines died on one operation.
Well, no, that was 1,600 casualties.
1,600.
Yeah,
okay.
that includes dead and wounded. I don't remember.
Well, regardless, that is a mass casualty rate that we have not seen. And coming back home, we were not treated that way. And that has to do with the way that our Vietnam veterans were treated. Mm-hmm. They literally, and I'll say this again, paved the way for the future generations to have the support they need. And now, honestly, it's coming to light, post-traumatic stress and dealing with that, transitioning out of the military and how we could help these guys reintegrate back into society is all based upon what you guys have done and what you guys experienced.
Well, I'm glad that some good has come out of it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you didn't get to experience that good.
Yeah.
But you have amazing people like Daniel Vargas here.
Yeah, exactly.
Who make sure that our heroes are taken care of. Because guess what? You are a hero. And that's how we are going to treat you.
Well, Thank you.
I agree. Yeah.
I don't feel like a hero, but it is what it is. I'm truly, truly grateful for people like Dan and his organization, and for people like yourselves that provide an outlet for Vietnam veterans to have their voice heard. I'm glad to see our troops being treated, being given the respect that they deserve.
Yeah.
And it wasn't always like that. So I'm truly glad to see it. Thank you for your service,
and thank you for yours.
So and I really mean that, man. We were on the front lines fighting for freedom, man. The front line of this fight, and we're going to be in this for the long haul for a long while, man.
Well, thank God we have the United States Marine Corps and people like you that made sure to pave the way.
Bless the Marine Corps, man.
So, hey, it has been incredible having you on this show. I'd like to have you on again.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I would like to discuss, the treatment a little bit more in depth.
Okay.
And how we can avoid these issues in the future, and teach some of our veterans out there who are struggling themselves what to do next, and how to reach people like Daniel Vargas and yourselves, and how we can connect to share these stories. So
sure.
Awesome having you on the show. Great hearing your stories.
Thank you for having me.
You also saved the lives of generations of Atlas deer as well, which is incredible. So thanks so much for being on the show.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for your time today, Jesse. Dave and I, from this standpoint, we could not thank your generation enough for all that you guys endured and continued to endure for years. It set the precedent for
You're welcome.
What we're able to come back to now.
Yeah.
So truly from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And
you're welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Well, this has been the MedEvac Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Keep an eye out for the next episode with Jesse Herrera. We'll have him back on very soon, hopefully.
All right.
Take care.